Hello. Hey guys, good morning, good day to you, wherever you're at. I hope you're doing well. Well, in this video, I'm about to show you a couple of short clips of people who really don't believe that there's a hell. But I'm going to show you 5 minutes. I'm going to try to knock it down to 5 minutes of each people testifying what they encountered in hell. And so, those of you who don't believe in hell or heaven or hell or a God or a devil, you in for a treat. And there's some people that believe that hell was on. We living in hell or whatever, like in the physical. No. Wait till I listen to these stories, boy, because this is gonna shock you. But the first story I'm gonna tell you, and it's gonna kind of shock you. Let's start and go my way up.
When I had questions about cancer, the American Cancer Society's 24/7 help.
It was a typical autumn day, and I was in my element as I walked deeper into the woods and felt the cool breeze dancing on my skin. The sound of leaves rustling under my feet, the far-off hoot of an owl, and the smell of damp earth all made me feel at ease. I was following a big buck, and the excitement of the chase was pumping through my veins. The peace of the forest was broken all at once. A wrong step caused me to trip and fall down a steep slope. Sharp pain cut through me. My vision got blurry, and I felt a warm, wet feeling spread across my chest. Then, darkness covered me like a heavy cloak and threw me into a deep sleep. Coming out of that darkness was like waking up in a dream. The physical pain was gone, and in its place was a strange numbness. I wasn't in the woods anymore. Instead, I found myself in a place where there was no light, and the air felt cold and empty. There was a lot of sadness in the air, and there was a heavy silence that echoed in the vast void. I soon saw a person come out of the shadows. In the dim light, the man came closer, and his face became clear. It was Adolf Hitler. As I tried to figure out what was going on, I felt a wave of fear and confusion. He had the same intense gaze and famous mustache that had been used to describe him in the past. When Hitler started to talk, his voice was strong and sure, and I felt scared. He told about his horrible afterlife, which was a never-ending cycle of pain because of the horrible things he did while he was alive. This eternal punishment was described in detail, with each part full of regret and fear. It was a scary scene that showed how much a life filled with hate and cruelty costs. His face showed that he was sad, with deep lines where he had been hurt over and over again. With each of his chilling words, his punishment blew away like a cold wind. Each sentence echoed the depth of his regret, sending ripples through the stark emptiness around us. The scene was hard to take, showing in a horrifying way what a life of evil and cruelty does to a person. In the middle of this sad talk, an amazing thing happened. The darkness was slowly being cut through by a small change. The cold was pushed back by a soft, glowing light that began to fill the empty space. The light was a sign of hope. It gave off a soothing warmth and a feeling of peace that was hard to describe. The light started out as a tiny dot that got brighter and stronger as it moved through the darkness. It felt like someone had punched a hole in the darkness, letting a stream of light from heaven flow into the abyss. My heart answered, and even though I was scared and sad, my hope grew stronger. The darkness I had just been in was a sharp contrast to this bright light. It gave off a warmth that cut through my sadness and gave me a feeling of peace I couldn't explain. I felt a strong pull toward it, like I couldn't stop myself from going toward it. In the storm, it was a lighthouse that led me away from the terror below. As I climbed higher and left the empty realm behind, the cold, suffocating emptiness was replaced by a feeling of peace and warmth. I found myself standing in a place of unending beauty and peace, where the air was filled with a feeling of love and peace that I can't describe. There, in the heavenly beauty of this realm, is where I met Jesus. He was tall and regal, and his face gave off a kind and understanding vibe. The light around him was soft and strong at the same time. This was a sign of his perfect love. When I was with him, I felt a peace I had never felt before. Then we started to talk. Jesus spoke in a way that was both gentle and authoritative, and his words cut right through me. He talked about my life, the choices I'd made, and the results of those choices. He showed me where I had gone wrong and where I had missed the right turn. As he talked, I saw a video of my whole life, including every event, decision, and moment. I saw myself as a child, a teenager, a young adult, a husband, and a father. I saw my wins, my losses, my triumphs, and the things I wished I hadn't done. I felt like I was both the audience and the main character in a movie. Through this divine mirror, I could see how my actions affected the people around me, including the pain I caused, the joy I brought, and the love I gave and received. With each memory, Jesus taught me something very important. And
On Christmas Day, we were in the hospital.
Hi, welcome to Heaven Encounters. My guest today is Brian Melvin. He was a self-professed militant atheist, and then he died. And he experienced hell after his death. But there was an event that was after that is also very intriguing, because God gave him a vision of heaven as well. But I guess, Brian, we'll start with the hell experience, and welcome to our program.
Well, thank you for having me, Randy. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. And let's start there with how you died, and then after that, how you entered into hell.
Well, make a long story short, I got about a 5-hour testimony, so. But anyway, I found myself drinking some bad water, polluted water out of a thermos, and I contracted cholera and basically dehydrated and died. That's how it all began. And I recall about 3 days after I drank the water, taking my last breath, and in a nanosecond, I lost all my atheistic worldviews. Like you said, I was a militant atheist back then. What amazed me that after I died, I was still alive. I was more alive then than I am now. I mean, it was like just an awakening in a new realm. It's just incredible. I found myself floating above my body, had no worries, and next thing I knew, I went through the ceiling and entered this black void, and at that time, I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about near-death experiences, after-death experience, because being an atheist, I wouldn't believe it anyway. You just wouldn't believe anything like that. I knew nothing. I was a blank slate. All I knew, I was alive. My body was laying there. I went through the ceiling. I was interjected into a black void heading toward a light, like a lot of people have say they do. I never heard any of this stuff before. And I was in this black void, floating toward this light, hearing this very beautiful, beautiful, profound music. And it was like I heard this beautiful, profound music, and it was explaining the mysteries of God, His nature, His character, the mysteries of the universe, if you will. Most of it was I can't really talk about, because there's just no way to talk about it. But anyway, I was floating through there, and it was like I was being confronted with something, and because snippets of my life would be flashing before me, and I could see how I was taking advantage of certain characteristics of God with myself knowing it as well as not knowing it. I was taking advantage of God's gift He gave me, life. I was actually making life very ugly, and I never realized I was headed toward a reckoning, because I felt this profound love and joy, and never thought in a million years that God's love was actually going to be judging me. And that's how it all began, Randy.
And at that point that you felt judged, and you encountered at that point Jesus, and that's the amazing thing, because you really didn't know about Him, and He told you something in advance of where you were going. What did He say?
Yes, I was floating through this void, and I landed before Him, and feet first, and I stood before Him, and I knew who it was. Who it was, Jesus. And what it was like was having what He was showing me, how I gamed this system. I thought, how do you say it? I was just totally reprobate in my thinking, so to speak. I would take advantage of people. It's like my parents. God gave me a gift of life, gave me great parents, Southern Baptist parents, and gave me a great home. But I took advantage of all those things. I gamed the system, so to speak. I abused God's love. God's love makes the rain fall on the just and the unjust. It gives you life. And I was taking advantage of it. I was using it for my own ends. I betrayed people. I robbed from people. At that time, one of the visions that came to me was a past event in my life where I sold drugs to the church youth group. And they got high during a skating thing, and they all came back wanting more drugs, and I knew nothing about drugs except what I read in a book, and that's how it all began for me. I did things I should not have done, and I just was taking advantage of God's love. And then God would show me all the different times He came to me, knocked on my door, so to speak, trying to get my attention. Like there would be I don't know, about 3 or 4 very bad car wrecks that I miraculously avoided from being killed, as well as those who were with me being killed, as well as people that would come up to me and witness, and legitimate Christians, that is, and how I treat them and stuff. And I was like poking my finger in God's eye. That's basically how I lived my life. I had a chip on my shoulder. I accused God of being a big meanie. He doesn't want you to have any fun. I learned all this stuff from the media, from school, arts, entertainment, all that kind of stuff, just as a young kid when I was growing up, inundated me to think that there was no God, or that God owed man an apology, and basically I bounced from agnosticism into full-blown militant atheism when this happened.
Wow. So you were an atheist at this point. Jesus told you that you could not enter into heaven because of this. And then He said something to you that you would carry with you to your experience in hell.
Yeah, after He showed me all the experience of saving my so many times from accidents and stuff, and He showed me what I was really like on the inside, and that I don't deserve heaven. If I was allowed in, I'd simply corrupt it. And so what He said to me, He said, you will see a land unknown that's best forgotten, but not to remain left unseen. When you come to a point of overwhelming, say my name and my title. And also He said, returning is an option to be yet decided. That was the kicker, because it was like I'm flummoxed. I had no idea. I wrote in my book, A Land Unknown, Hell's Dominion. I was flummoxed. I was just like a deer in the headlight. Look, yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir. And that was basically it. And so here I was picked up by a force after that and went to a door. This door rolled up like a scroll, and I went into that door, and I was in the tornado vortex-like place, and it smelled awful. A lot of foul language and different languages coming at you. You hear it was very hot. You heard all this noise. It was like being inside of a tornado. I came to a yellowish dent, and it was a light. I came through it, fell through the sky, bounced on the ground, and I knew I was headed for an awful place. And what I recall, people talk about hell and stuff as devils and pitchforks and flames and fire. Well, I bounced on the ground and found myself on a hill. I looked down a valley, and there's a house on the other side, and all these people come running out of the house, people who I know who have died or whatever, and they came down and welcomed me to paradise. This wasn't paradise because the tree was dilapidated, things looked dead, it was extraordinarily hot, and they came up to me, slapping me on my back, and I said that a couple people came up to me and said, you can't be you because you ain't dead yet, or you can't be in paradise because I know what you did. And then they would change and morph into another person, and I thought that was strange. Then their eyes looked like alligator eyes, or like yellow reptilian type eyes, and then they turned into what they were. These were these hellish creatures, or the demonic beings, you want to call them, and different shapes and sizes. The taller ones had authority over the smaller ones, and they're going to overwhelm me and tear me to shreds. And that's when I started to say, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, because He told me to say His name and His title. And they could not grab a hold of me and rip me to shreds. They can poke me and they can threaten me, but they couldn't grab me, and that means a lot.
The world don't want to use that name.
And that's pretty much how it started, this whole thing. And this creature, he stood about 4'8" tall. He had breath that was so foul that It would be like heat waves coming off the pavement out of his mouth. That's how foul it was. I could never see how many eyes. He kind of looked like a little dinosaur type thing, a reptilian type entity. And I nicknamed him Lizard Breath because his breath was so foul. After I came back, that's what I nicknamed him. And so he came over and told me, come follow him. Like, if you have the kingdom, it's been granted to you to see this place. He hated my guts. I mean, I tell you, I can tell you, when someone hates you that much. And he walked over and he stuck his hand in what looked like the horizon and ripped it open. And he stepped out of there. I didn't know what to do. I just followed it, went through that opening and stood out. And I stepped up out of it onto a wide, dusty road. And behind me, what I came out of was a cube, or a cell, like the Bible says in the book of Proverbs, chambers of death, or Ezekiel chapter 32 talks about the graves, or graves roundabout, or sepulchres, or dungeon cells like around in this pit. So I found myself in a pit, and this place, it was like a bottomless pit, so all I can describe. There's an open place in the middle. These tornado vortexes were dropping people off inside of these cells, and plus these entities, these demonic entities, were escorting people and placing them in cells at the same time. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to think about it, and I just sat there and I looked at it, and this thing was talking to me in a hellish language, and I could understand it. And I looked inside the cells, and I could see people inside the cells. I had instant download of their life history, and in this instant, and this thing was going to show me this place. And I don't know why he was showing me, because at the time I wanted to wake up, because this was terrifying. And even when I was getting ready for this, I had to take a break and calm down a little bit, because sometimes the memories can be a little intense. And so I just remember that part, coming out, looking at all these entities, bringing these people in, watching these tornado vortexes in, dropping people off in these cubes, and this thing saying, come follow it. And so that's what I did. And that's what happened. That's how I got to this place. It was the pit of hell.
And Brian, you saw people there. You knew their station in life before they had died. You account for a former pastor, I think, I don't know, I've forgotten of what era, who was had slept with many women. And then you saw one person in particular, and I've got to ask you, I will let you say who that is, but he is probably the most despised man in all of history, recent history, certainly.
Yeah, I saw so many people there, and you see their life history and stuff. And so we were walking along this wide, dusty road, looking inside these cells, and I was granted the ability to know who they were. And in some instances, we were able to go in between the cubes. The cubes are like a brick layer, and since they're round, they kind of open up in little V-shaped formations in the rooms, and it winds back behind there. So we'd squeeze through the sides of it and go in the back. So we kind of wind back around, down and around. I can't explain how it all is in a short amount of time we have here, but I ended up in a place where some of the worst of the worst of the worst people were. And the individual that I saw, and that I mentioned also in a docudrama that was done on me, was Adolf Hitler. He was inside, at that time, this was 1980 when this happened, he was inside of what I would call a fiery furnace, like Auschwitz, where they put the bodies and they were burning them. And he was going through what every single victim went through, from their arrest, from their arrival, from their strip down, to where they were gassed. Every single one, and felt every single thing. Man, woman, and child. And that's what I saw. And he wasn't being reformed. He was getting crazier. That's all I gotta say. His real nature was really coming forth.
It seemed like, Brian, that the sins that they had committed, and some of them just vile sins, obviously, that they were being replayed over and over in their life in this place. Is that what it was like?
Yeah, it was. It was very much like that. like I looked into a cell and I saw a man he died days gone by, and he was attending this costume party. He was a kind of elitist snob, is all I can say. And he appeared to be enjoying himself because he liked charades and putting on these funny masks. But it was like suddenly it shifted, and he was in nightmare stage when the attendees began to ridicule and mock him like he would do everybody else. And he felt the pain of the ridicule. So what the Bible says, what you sow is what you reap. I saw so many people in there. I saw this lecherous old-time revival preacher who wasn't really a preacher at all. He wasn't ever saved, but he liked to exploit his position to have his way with the ladies. And he was there reaping what he sown. And real quickly I saw one particular person. Her name was Dear Pudding, and she arrived. She died in a car wreck. She died, and she landed in front of me in this in the tornado vortex, and knocked on this door, and it opened as a cube or cell, looked like her grandparents' farm. She went in, thought she saw all her dead relatives welcoming her to paradise, and she really thought she was there. And maybe if she was resuscitated too soon, maybe she would be on Oprah Winfrey and all those shows. But anyway, she went in there and she found out that she wasn't in a nice place, and it transpired that she was she reaped what she sowed. And there's these big creatures I saw there looked like trees. So her what appeared to be her grandmother, which was a demonic being, said, "Go rest under the shade of the trees. I'll bake you your favorite cookies. And you're down at this new farm here, and it's your favorite place." So she went over there, and there's no water in hell, but she thought there was water, so she sat on this rock, picked up a bunch of sand, and she realized this wasn't a nice place because she heard the noise and felt the heat. And these two tree-like things were like tentacle-like, squid-like beings, looked to her like trees, and they engulfed her. And she was very mean to her kids. She was a control freak. She beat her children with a hairbrush because she wanted them to be, in this family, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a lawyer. You're not going to be a lowly truck driver. You're not going to be an astronaut. You're going to be a doctor. And that's the way she raised her kids. But everybody else thought that she was so nice. But she was reaping what she has sown right then and there. All that, when trees and those creatures reached her and grabbed her, that's exactly what went into her mind. She saw that. How she treated people, really treated people.
Wow. And all this time, the demon that you call lizard breath, he was speaking out to you, vile things. And then it goes back to what Jesus had told you at the very beginning before going to this land unknown. And that is to cry out his name. And that prevented you from being drawn in or kept in that place?
Well, he gave me permission. I didn't understand all this at the time, but I'm looking back at hindsight now. And so from hindsight, he told me his name. I knew nothing about the power of his name. I did not know anything about this stuff. But I learned quickly there's power in the name of Jesus. They can't grab a hold of you, and they can't pull you down.
And you're...
I'm going to stop it right there. But let's go to the next person.
Upon his first day of retirement, Marcus Rogers made a contract with himself. I will never again work for...
And the demon looked up. Remember, it's 10,000 times darker than anything you've ever seen. And you can feel the darkness. It's tangible. So a pinhead light is light. And the demon saw it, and I guess he knew then that someone was coming.
Hey, hello. God bless you guys. I pray you're having a blessed and beautiful, wonderful day in the Lord Jesus. So today we are watching Remnant Are Rising. That's the channel name. You can find it in the description box below. Remnant Rising shared with me, he said he had some experiences of the afterlife, so he really wanted to share this with us. These are real life experiences, that like out of body experiences that really happen. So this isn't a dream or a vision. This is a real life event that has happened, and he wanted to share it with us. So thank you so much, brother, for sharing this with us. I'm really blessed, and really appreciate you emailing this to me. So without further ado, you guys, let's go ahead and jump into this.
I have an experience I would like to share today, and this experience is, I would call the afterlife. I really want to take my time and just kind of walk through this. I want to talk about the afterlife because most people just think that once you're dead, you're done. And I've had the opportunity to cross over in an out-of-body experience, and I would like to talk about it, if that's okay. I've actually crossed over in an out-of-body experience twice. So, and I would just like to share my opinion, or share what I saw, share some of the feelings that I had when I was there. Because I constantly hear things like, now that Uncle Bob is dead, he's in a much better place. As if heaven is just a automatic benefit for all the people who die on earth. And most people just think since the judgment of God is not apparent or immediate, then there's absolutely no judgment at all. However, one night I was taken to hell in an out-of-body experience, and I was escorted there by 3 demons. The experience started with a vision of me following this beautiful woman down the hallway of a church, and inside the church I felt safe and comfortable, and so the woman was extremely beautiful, so I figured I'd just follow her and try to strike up a conversation with her. This was many years ago, but I'm in this vision at the time. The woman I was following turned out to be a demon in disguise, and that long hallway that I was in turned out to be the entrance to a cave. The demons are very clever, and they're always
transformed
100 or so steps in front of us, especially when you're out of the will of God for your life. And in this particular time I was, the cave was it was a deep, dark, pitch black cave surrounded by demons. The fear and horror was tangible, and you could feel the darkness to the touch. It almost as if the darkness was alive there. It was tangible, the darkness. We're not accustomed to that on the earth, I know. And that's what I mean by the sights and sounds and sensations in hell. It's 1,000 times or 10,000 times worse than anything that you could ever imagine. You're totally not prepared for what you're getting ready to walk into. The smoke at the bottom of the cave had life, and the smoke even had a face. Because the smoke came up to me, the smoke in that cave where I was just came up to me like that and stopped. And almost as if it was expecting my arrival. And that was truly, it was unreal. It was, like I said, it was worse than your horror movies. And it had a face. The smoke had a face. That was a trip. I could see only the eyes of the demons, but not their full bodies until they just emerge from the blackness of the cave. The demons were very tall, and their size varied from maybe 10 to 20 feet. And they looked like something like the monsters from something like Lord of the Rings. The cave was wet and damp like a city sewer. It resembled something like the Batman cave from dehydrated. I can hardly breathe because of the poor air quality in hell. It feels like you're being waterboarded, but you're not. You just can't breathe in hell. This may sound crazy, but the demons begin to take out their vengeance and frustrations on me by beating me up in hell. Just slamming me. They were just slamming me back and forth. Slam me to this wall of the cave, and it just, like I said, I could hardly breathe. I was dehydrated. In hell, you're breathing like, it's almost like trying to breathe through a water-soaked shirt or something. It's very laborious, and you're so weak, like, say you've been in a coma and you've just awakened from the coma and you see people standing by your bedside. You're not just going to jump up and say, oh, hey, there's Mary, there's Tom. You're not going to feel it because you're so weak. You've been in a coma for 6 months. That's how it feels. That's what it felt like to me in hell. And the demons were just slamming me from one side of the wall to the other side of the wall, and I would pass out. And when I would come back to, they would start the entire process all over again. And remember, I wasn't in my physical body. I was in a spiritual body, a body that was created for that sort of thing. And it's just the size. Just imagine if you walk up on, say, like a 20-foot demon that looks like a horror monster. That alone is enough to freeze you in your steps. You're not going to move. You're just going to shake and tremble, And the demons were switching back and forth. They were speaking a language that I could not understand to each other because they were in communication with each other. And then they would switch from that language back to English. And I could understand what they were saying in English. And then they would switch back to that other language. And it was, that's the best I could do with it. It's just, I couldn't understand it, but I could hear it. But whenever they switched back to English, they told me that their orders were to take me to the gates of hell. Remember that this is my second encounter. If you watch any of my other videos, you know I had that other experience where I was in the bottomless pit, or what I thought was the bottomless pit, when the death angel came into my room that night. And I was just falling, and you never quit falling. You just constantly, the entire experience is just falling and pitch black darkness. But this time, I ended up in a cave. And they said their orders were to take me to the gates of hell. I couldn't speak. I was just in shock and trauma. And so as soon as I said, oh God, the demons looked at me and I said, Jesus, in the cave. And they said, oh, there's no need for you to call on Jesus now because no one can help you now, not even Jesus. And they told me, this is it for you, Frankie. You have finally overstepped your bounds for the last time. So they knew on earth, they knew about the times I was making mistakes on earth, or they knew about the times I was going against the will of God for my life. It was crazy, but they knew. They were telling me the times that I messed up. I guess to make me feel more guilty and more ashamed for doing it. But I still was calling on the name of the Lord Jesus. And so they said that no one can rescue you now, not even Jesus. And so I said, Lord Jesus, I said, if the name Frankie Ross means anything to you at all, if the name Frankie Ross means anything to you at all, then please save me now. And the Lord spoke to me in that cave, in that pitch black darkness, and said, in like a quiet voice, then call my name. And I just started saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And the demon pointed at me like that. And it's just like something came from his hand to my lips. Nothing that I could see, but something came from his hand to my lips. And I just, and so that was that. Couldn't call on the name of Jesus anymore. Not verbally anyway. I had to just do it inside. And so here was one of my sisters called my name. And once I did that, the rest is history because I was rescued. strong, going like, oh goddamn. And I couldn't move my lips again, so I'm just, in my spirit, I'm just crying out to God, because I felt so doomed, so isolated, and so abandoned in this dark and wet, damn, stinking cave. And every time I would call on the name of Lord Jesus in my spirit, the demons kept looking up. They kept looking up. And I know what's going on. And so one of the demons pointed at the other demon, and they started in that language. That demon disappeared. He was out of there. He was, just like, I'm out of here. And so then the other two demons, they acted as if they would get into some sort of argument. And one demon leaned in, just like what are we doing here? I couldn't understand what he said, but just from his actions alone. And then he kept looking up, and then he looked at the other demon and said, I'm out of here. And then that last demon, he says, I'm going to get you to the gates of hell. You're going to the gates of hell today. And he grabbed me by my feet, because he was a huge demon. He grabbed me by my feet. He just had my feet in his fingertips like this. That's how big he was. Grabbed me by my feet and just was dragging me. So imagine my feet being up in the air like this, and the demon is dragging me. My back is on the bottom of the cave, and he's dragging me to the gates of hell. And then all of a sudden, I saw just like a tiny bit of light, maybe like the size of a pinhead. And the demon looked up. Remember, it's 10,000 times darker than anything you've ever seen. And you can feel the darkness. It's tangible. So a pinhead light is light. And the demon saw it, and I guess he knew then that someone was coming. And he dropped me. Boom. And he disappeared. And by the time I looked at the light, it started getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And boom. I never saw who it was. If it was an angel from Jesus himself, I never saw that. I ended up back in my bedroom. Again, shock and trauma. Just, Lord, I'm never going to do what I was doing again. I'm never going to do it again. Please don't take me back to that place. That kind of thing. Yeah. And once you have an experience like that, you're afraid trying to light at night when you go to bed. And I told God, please don't. I don't ever want to see hell again. I don't ever want to even come up 10,000 miles within that place. Because you come back shocked. You come back in trauma. And I was thinking that I was going to need to be put on some sort of medication because I had so much trauma. You talking about post-traumatic stress? Oh my God.
Como alguien que sabe lo que es.
The angel was serious. He said, tell him, don't come here. Excuse me. You tell him, don't come here. I realized this is the final judgment and the final place for all who don't accept Jesus as Christ.
So this man went to hell, and he experienced a very torturing experience. Like it was, his explanation, no one should ever want to go there. And we'll keep on bringing these videos because we don't want anyone to end up in hell.
If we don't take, who will? If us as Christians don't tell people about hell, then who's going to tell them?
Yes. Who will tell them? We need to talk about this. We need to get as many people to go to heaven. We need to win souls because this thing is real, guys. This thing is real.
Very real.
So I know some people, I read the comments and they're saying that, oh, this is not real, or there's nothing like hell. But when that happens...
Let me say this before you
yes.
go on. People say hell is not real. You want to take a chance? Really? Just say, for example, hell is not real. And we just died, and then we're buried, and we're gone. But what if hell is real? You want to take that chance.
Yes.
You really want to take that chance if it's real. If it's not, then you're good. But if it is real, like we're saying, then we're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Yes, and you not have time to now step back and say, okay, now I believe it. You're there. You're there. You can't change your mind
like
once you're there. So let's play this video and see what this man went through. And let us hear how he explains it because his explanation is very good. And please watch this till the end.
Yeah, stick around.
Yes.
If I don't get this out now, then it'll be a long time before I say this again. Hell is not the end, and it is nothing compared to the lake of fire. We're talking about burning in hell. Yes, hot. Yes, it's uncomfortable. And yes, you're tormented. But you won't be tormented in hell forever. Hell is not a forever place.
Hell's not forever, he says. And we read in the Bible, it said, hell will be thrown into the lake of fire. So that means it's going to get worse for people who goes there. It could be even a million times worse, you know?
I feel like hell is where you go to eat. There's this torturing you are experiencing.
It's like a holding chamber, you could say.
Yes, before you're taken into the lake now of fire, where everything will be thrown there at the end of times, during the judgment day and all that. So this is just a torturing experience, and there's nothing as bad as the main thing. So this one you'll feel like you're burning and all, but now imagine where you'll be thrown. Now the lake of fire is even worse.
It's going to even get worse.
Yes, it's worse.
Wow.
Yes.
Help us, Jesus.
So let's hear more.
Itself is going to be thrown into the lake of fire. You're going out of the frying pan into the fire. It gets worse. It's 100,000 times worse than going to hell. I was standing there and I was looking out, and I could see like it was like a light smoke. So it wasn't dark. It was like a light. So it was a haze. It was very light. I could see it, and I thought I was seeing something from a distance. And
that's confirmation.
then it started to move. I was on a platform. The platform started to move forward. And I realized I was standing behind a transparent, like a glass barrier. And I moved forward and it stopped. I'm on the platform. And I looked and there were people. They were lined up side by side as far as you could see. As far as I could see back, as far as I could see to the left, as far as I could see to the right, they were lined up side by side. And they had their hands up and their mouths open. They were screaming, but I couldn't hear them. They were screaming in terror, but I couldn't hear them, but I could see them. And then I looked, the flames came up to about almost to their waist. But you know how fire goes up, like they say the fire licks. The fire was going up chest high, and their skin was melting. But it didn't come off, it bubbled. Their skin bubbled. It's like, well, you've seen things that bubble. Just their skin was bubbling. It was boiling, it was bubbling, but it didn't fall off. And the people were screaming. And there were these creatures. They were as big as, they were as big as a dog. Bigger.
Wow.
The skin was melting and it is bubbling. I mean, I can't imagine that, and you could see them like screaming in terror. But one thing for sure, at least he didn't experience that. He was shown as a vision.
Yeah.
You can see what is really happening to them. Now, the other videos we've done, these guys really experienced that. But now he can see. And you can imagine seeing somebody getting tortured in front of your eyes.
You're not supposed to help them.
And you can't help them because there was this screen that was separating him from those people. There was an angel who was showing him what will happen. And he could see me. I can't just imagine my skin bubbling.
Baby, when you feel like a little burn on you, we cry like babies.
Yes.
But so much where your skin is bubbling.
Yes, you just see it like it's bubbling. It's kind of melting, but it is not like getting out of your skin. I mean, that is torture.
And this is forever.
Yes.
There's no end to it.
Sized dog. But they were like black bumblebees. And they were flying, and they had these stingers. And the stingers looked like they were.
If you're still watching this, don't forget to hit that like button. It'll come
just hit that like and subscribe button right now. Now, one thing that is consistent is these creatures that they tell us. If you've never watched our Hell Part 2 video, there's a link there. You can go and watch it. We'll leave it when you
grab my Bible, I run in the living room. It's like maybe 3:30, 4 in the morning, and I start rocking back and forth on the couch, and I'm like, Lord, why am I seeing this? Please help me. Why am I seeing this? And the Spirit of God just came in and said, you chose the wrong path. My grandparents and mother raised me with Christian values. I got into New Age occultism and eventually figured out I was dealing with the world of dark forces that I wasn't equipped to deal with. After being spiritually attacked numerous times and being warned by a ministering spirit, the truth set me free. I soon realized I'm not the only witness to the Holy Spirit, and this truth needs to be shared. The Bible says bad company corrupts good character. And nowadays with the internet, bad company can literally come inside your pocket. So I'm listening to lectures on the spirit realm. I'm reading books and all these other things. I'm like, screw white Jesus, everything else. And I'm just rah, Afrocentric and just really going forward with this kind of new age cultism kind of thing going on.
Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils.
So I'm trying anything under the sun, because the reality is I'm scared of dying. I'm going through this deep, dark depression. My body smells like it's a corpse, and pretty much I'm at the brink of death. I'm losing weight and all these other things, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to die, so I might as well peek behind the veil and see what's going on.
My heart is sore pained within me, and the terrors of death are fallen upon me. Fearfulness and trembling are come upon me, and horror hath overwhelmed me.
You know, so once you go from, being the life of the party to being the plague in the room, it's kind of the opposite spectrum, because now you can't rely on your ego and your talents. It's like, well, you can rely on yourself, because now, quote unquote, according to this depression, nobody understands you. I got bad hygiene, pretty much poor hygiene. I got bad eating habits. So I'm not flossing, I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm, masturbating a lot. I'm listening to cult leaders and do this, set up your altar this way. You want to open up a portal, do this, get these stones, do this. Everything the Bible pretty much warns against, I was pretty much doing.
There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee.
So anyway, I got into meditation and altar work and witchcraft so deep that, I started to astral project, and my soul would leave my physical body, and I would be off in these different realms of existence. In the Bible, it talks about the silver cord. And that silver cord actually attaches your body to your soul, and that's pretty much what you're floating around on. That's, brings you back to your physical body. I could feel, I could taste, I could smell in these states of being. In most dreams, you're just watching, but in here, I'm, everything's fully conscious. And a lot of the times, I couldn't retain my consciousness for
longer than, say, 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5 at the most. A lot of the times I would catch myself doing stuff because I'm literally jumping in these things in the middle of scenes. It's like I'm waking up like, oh, okay, my soul is doing something. Now I get to see what's happening with my soul, that connection that I made. So anyway, it left room for a lot of error and a lot of, misinterpretations of things going on, to say the least. I think the first time I noticed things started getting dark was when I saw a succubus. A succubus is a female demonic entity that appears in dreams to seduce men through sexual activity. Repeated sexual activity with the succubus can result in poor physical or mental health, even death. I wake up in this state, and there's a woman on top of me, and we're having sex, obviously. She climaxes, she gets up, and then she walks out of the room. And I'm looking like, okay, wait a minute, what just happened? I get up, I look out the door, I'm like, hey, where are you going? All of a sudden, the entire scene flashes white. I'm in a all-white room, and pretty much the woman I thought it was, she was tied up now in a chair. And then from behind me, a guy's hand comes, and he's got, like, you can tell he's wearing a white robe, right? And he says, look what you're sleeping with. And as he says this woman's face, it morphs, and her eyes turn black, her mouth opens up real wide, and it's just teeth on top of teeth. And I'm just like, whoa, kill this thing, give me a gun, shoot it. I'm flipping out. And then boom, I get shot back into my body, and it kind of freaked me out. Now I'm on edge with anything that comes into contact with me. You see, these demonic spirits, they know exactly what you want. I was living a lifestyle that was catering to sin. So not only am I doing these dark magical practices and these new age things, I'm actually still in sin because I'm lusting after other women on the internet through porn addiction and everything else. So when these entities, so to speak, they come upon you, they know exactly what you want and how you want it. Meanwhile, you think you're sleeping with some human and having this natural spiritual experience, but the reality is you're getting your life force sucked out of you and you just don't know it. Another thing the enemy likes to do is takes God's warning and his message to you, and he'll flip it upside down and turn it into his need. So I'll give you a good example. So I'm meditating, I'm in the wilderness, and I'm, chanting and doing all these other different things, and I'm sitting down. And as I wake up from my meditation, there's a embankment of trees across the way from the pond I'm meditating on. And from this large 100-foot tree, there's a spider web from the top of the tree coming down and hitting me right in the middle of my chest, like right on my heart. I wake up, I look down, and I look up where it's coming from. I'm like, I just brush it off. And of course, I go home and I Google spider spiritual meaning, and then of course it pops up, oh, this is a sign of birth and rebirth and death and life, and it's about your new spiritual waking, go in there and weave your own web, and all these other new age things that have nothing to do with Christ, nothing to do with repentance or any of this. And I'm like, okay, cool. Pretty much I gotta weave my own web. I gotta go out and live a new life. I'm being reborn in this new spiritual awakening. That's what I'm thinking.
So are the paths of all that forget God, and the hypocrite's hope shall perish, whose hope shall be cut off, and whose trust shall be a spider's web.
Do more together this holiday in the Chevy that's right for you. The award-winning Chevy Equinox. The hard-working...
So pretty much that clear warning from God telling me that my only hope would be a spider's web got misconstrued by the enemy and said, okay, this is a good thing, move forward into the darkness, spreading the lies and capturing people in the web. You see, Satan casts a web of lies, and a web is nothing more than to snare you. See, when a spider catches something in its web, it's caught there and it usually feeds on it. The only thing birthed out of a spider web is more spiders. So pretty much my rebirth was basically in the fashion of a spider. I'm catching people in my web of lies and I'm making them believe what I believe, which is the lie. So I listened to what was said on the internet, and the World Wide Web told me to pretty much move forward. So I believed it. So anyway, so I go on YouTube, I start making videos talking about, okay, this is how you see your aura, this is how you cleanse your aura. Oh, if you want to astral travel, do this. I was just doing a lot of stuff that just pulls people away from God,
even him whose coming is after the workings of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved.
And I'm not thinking about any of this stuff because I've seen so much and gone so many places. I've seen so many signs and wonders that nobody can tell me nothing. I'm full of pride, I'm full of arrogance, I'm full of ego. Meanwhile, I'm still going through a depression. I have a bitterness inside of me. When demons use their influence to affect a person's mental state, causing some kind of mental disturbance, this is traditionally called obsession. Obsession can take the form of persistent or intense temptations. It can even provoke and intensify natural pathologies and tendencies like phobias and depression. So when people would say something negative to me, I would want to do something evil to them, even though I know here in this physical world, I'll go to jail if I go over there and slice somebody's throat for saying something bad about me. I'll probably just go sock somebody in the face, you know. So, but in my heart, that's what I wanted to do. So what you bound on earth, you bound in heaven. So the things that are on your heart, that's released in heaven, right? So when I come outside my physical body and my soul is traveling around, wherever the case, if you say something about me, that's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm basically living the life of sin, and I'm doing the enemy's work by promoting his stuff, and I'm being evil outside the body, you know. So it's just basically, that was the mark of the beast in a nutshell. I'm doing Satan's words, I'm doing his actions, I'm doing his sins. I'm pretty much textbook just evil all the way around. But I don't think this, I'm thinking I'm enlightened, right? So when you go to the internet, the World Wide Web, so to speak, and you look up all these different spiritual meanings that are void of actual God, or if you go to a psychic or a quote-unquote healer, what's going to happen is you're going to get a warning from God misconstrued. They're usually misconstrue your dreams and patterns and everything else. The Bible clearly says that God speaks to us in our dreams.
For God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth it not. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men, and sealeth their instruction, that he may withdraw man from his purpose, and hide pride from man. He keepeth back his soul from the pit, and his life from perishing by the sword.
So I'm in a dream. I walk up to I'm in a house, first of all. I'm in a house that's not mine. I don't know where I'm at, but I'm in a house. So I walk up to the screen door, getting ready to walk out of this house. And as I approach the screen door, I look across the street and I see a female lion or lioness. And the lion starts to walk, not run, or she's not in a hunting position, but she just calmly walks. And then she walks up right to the screen door, and then she squats and lays down calmly and just looks at me. I lock the screen door quickly, and then boom, I wake up. So, you know, I try to go to Google, and I'm thinking of all these other things, but I can't piece together why this lion is coming to this doorstep in a house that I don't know. So I call an acquaintance that's a psychic, right? And she says, oh, well, the lioness, that is the divine feminine energy. And she's calmly walking over, and she wants you to invite her in so you can merge with her energies. You know, this is what she said. Now, there was numerous scriptures in the Bible that applied to my life and pretty much warned me that says I was headed for the pit.
Be sober. Be vigilant. Because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour.
Not to mention that I'm in a house that's not my own, meaning I do not belong here. See, that was a clear warning sign from God. One, you're in a place you don't belong. Two, the fowler is right outside a screen door. There's nothing protecting you there because God isn't there. And the third warning I got from God came in the form of my grandfather, who passed away, over a decade ago. And it's my grandfather, and there's other elders in the room, and he walks up to me and he says, we're the Donalds, we worship Jesus. And I tell him, I'm like, you can't tell me what to do. This is my life. You can't just say there's heaven or hell and there's nothing in between. I'm getting boastful on all the stuff I know and getting arrogant, full of ego, and he's basically trying to tell me. Now, keep in mind, I'm full of arrogance. I live in the physical plane. He's in the spiritual world. They live there. I'm only peeking for 3 to 4 minutes at a time. So you would think that I would listen to someone like that, but I'm not. I'm being bold and arrogant in the stuff that I think I know, but I don't know anything.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing yet as he ought to know.
So anyway, I take that warning from him and I shove it down the toilet. I'm not worried about it. So anyway, I go on with my quote unquote spiritual journeys. The real reason I got into this was to just basically peek behind the veil if it's my time to go. But eventually it turned into me just wanting to have fun and going around and cause mischief and live out all the guilty pleasures that was on my heart. I'm sitting in my room and I'm editing a video. This is a new age video I think I'm editing at the time. And I'm sitting there and a voice comes into my head, clear as day. I'm not meditating, I'm not sleeping, I'm wide awake. A voice comes in my head and says, you better hold on to Jesus. And I'm like, hold on to Jesus? I start making fun of him, because I'm thinking it's just another spirit trying to talk to me. And I'm like singing a song in my head, like an old Southern spiritual. I got to hold on, making fun of him, And he's like, no, you don't know what you're doing. You better hold on to Jesus. And then another voice comes in and says, stop making videos, like stern, just like real stern. I'm like, wait, what? So I said, okay, let me put my keyboard down. And I sit down. And then they pretty much go on to tell me that Jesus is the chairman of the board. Now, mind you, that is directed towards me because at the time I used to tell people, the spirit world is like a corporation. You got your spirit guides, which are your human resources, and you got the blah, blah, blah. And I'm just ranking all these different quote unquote spirits and not mentioning the presence of Christ or God. So I'm keeping everything New Age, right? And so when he said Jesus is the chairman of the board, that was just a direct jab to me to make me be quiet, And I'm saying, well, what about when I saw my ancestors? What about when I saw this X, Y, and Z? And, I heard, shut up. This is not a debate. And I'm like, oh, okay. So they gave me pretty much a stern talking. They told me to stop making the videos. They told me to follow Christ. And pretty much I'm like, okay, all right. So this is kind of weird. But, I took the information. It took me really about 3 weeks to kind of get into it and say, okay, there's some dark stuff happening around the house. I'm turning back to God.
When thou art in tribulation, and all these things are come upon thee, even in the latter days, if thou turn to the Lord thy God, and shalt be obedient unto his voice, the Lord thy God is a merciful God.
Save on great gifts during Kohl's Friends and Family Sale with 20...
I think I'm going to stop it right here. And I'm going to continue this on another video. But, yeah. So, it's your choice. Many people, I had to show them, look, there's other testimonies. I can make another video, show you some more testimonies. And you had to hear from real people. And they was not on the hallucinants. They was not on no drugs. They didn't have no alcohol. They don't have no mental, emotional, problems. And probably don't. You can see that they're normal. So just because people are trying to make up excuses that, that's just, no, it's real. And I've kind of experienced some things from hell, but not at the level that they have. This is real, ladies and gentlemen. We on the last days. Look how many people around you have left this earth. We don't know where they're at. If they give their life to Christ, we know where they're at. But if they didn't, we don't know if they're with Christ. So let this be a lesson. So I hope you take heed to this video of the testimonies of these different content creators hearing testimonies. They're trying to bring you. It's not about religion. It's not about denomination. It's about coming to a kingdom. Which kingdom are you going to pick? Are you going to pick the right side of the kingdom or the wrong side of the kingdom? The wrong side of the kingdom could be rebellion. You rebel, you're going to see what these people see. Just what basically they try and tell you. So please take heed to the messages and take heed and subscribe to the content creators. But take heed that this is just a warning because the kingdom is at hand. Remember that the kingdom is at hand. The kingdom knows. The Most High, God knows. And you have the kingdom of darkness now. Which kingdom are you going to join? Because you hear about the dark kingdom. It's not so very pleasant. Remember this. So you can laugh and mock at these videos, but at the end of the day, your soul will be required. So give your life to Jesus. Thank you.